However, he found himself face to face with a most unexpected scene. A few steps in, he arrived at a large foyer extending from the mansion's entrance. But one thing was clearly out of place. The foyer of the mansion was like a hall in a medieval castle. It was illuminated by the cold winter sun casting down to the skylight, and aided by artificial light. The wooden tiles smelled of the outdoors. And there was Alice, dressed all in black, huddled against a column so enormous it resembled a sharply cornered tree trunk. The mansion was quite literally supporting her frail body. Like a mother's lullaby or a gently rocking cradle. The heavy atmosphere within this old building suppressed even the slightest stir, almost as if warding away any disturbance to her slumber. There she slept in the shadows of home. Hidden away from outsiders, her sleeping figure was enough to mesmerize anyone who laid eyes upon her. Soujuurou instinctively looked up at the ceiling out of sheer awkwardness. He wanted to surprise her, but not in this way. He forgot to get his other eye to look up at the ceiling, so he still stared at her in a way. Her slender frames lay asleep by the fireplace. The scene was as beautiful as a painting, yet hot in his heart at the same time. There we go. Her slumber seemed breathless. She was too still, with not even a hint of movement. And yet, slept against that frigid column under the cold winter sky, happiness appeared to be her blanket. A passerby would not be blamed for thinking she was in that peaceful state of eternal slumber. Dead.
寒くないのかな、この子は。
Soujuurou spoke to himself as he gazed idly upon her. Bringing her a blanket or something warm did not so much as cross the boy's mind. Instead, odd as it sounds, the first thing he thought to do was to go prepare some tea. He made sure to be as quiet as possible as he opened the drawing room door. On the table, waiting for him, were 3 pills. They were the medicine Aoko required him to take every day when he arrived home. Gulping down the vaguely sweet pills and continuing on to the kitchen, he selected a box of 3 of them, by the way, of tea from among the many in the cabinet and brewed enough for 2 people. Alice was still asleep when he returned to the foyer. Careful not to make any noise, he crouched close to the ground. He was startled by how cold the floor felt through his pants. He thought it would be warmer here by the fireplace, but then again he recalled how Aoko had referred to it as a useless hole in the wall. What was likely the case was that neither she nor Alice knew how to use it properly. Hey, you got your biscuits too. After taking the teacups from the tray and placing one in front of each of them, Soujuurou carefully pulled his textbook on classical literature from his satchel.
Aozaki, 怒ってたからな。
He could still see her angry face from this morning. The reason for her anger was still as much a mystery as the unusual look he saw briefly come across her face. In any case, one thing was certain: he needed to start studying for tomorrow. Thanks to Aoko's instruction, today's exams went well enough, but tomorrow's would be an even more formidable challenge. After how angry she was this morning, he could not expect her to help him again tonight.
そのくせ点数悪いと怒るし、別に青崎が怒る筋合いじゃないと思う。
He complained under his breath as he cracked open his textbook. Apparently, he intended to spend his time in this fashion until Alice finally awoke. sat at the page's turning was the only audible noise in the grand hall. There was no ticking of clocks or rustling of leaves to disturb her sleep. After a few hours, Soujuurou quietly rose to his feet. The light that filled the foyer was beginning to turn from white to red.
そろそろバイトの時間か。
Bless you. He glanced again at Alice as he stretched his stiff back. She sat in perfect stillness just as she had this entire time. Well, at least she's not awake, constantly thinking of how to kill you, constantly being angry, constantly staying up in the library, thinking about you. Soujuurou arched his brow in speculation. He had no idea, question mark, by the way? He had no idea what her normal sleeping schedule was like, besides magic stuff. He had no idea what her normal sleeping schedule was like, so he had no idea as to whether he should wake her.
いや、青崎も帰ってくるだろうし、いらぬ世話かな。
As reaching the end of a long train of thought, Soujuurou gave a quick nod of his head and took his leave of the mansion. Today, work was shipped at the Chinese restaurant in Misaki's shopping district, the Mad Bear. Their uniforms had been made by someone with an obvious preference for garish colors. The orange apron was emblazoned with a cartoonish polar bear slashing a walking chew with his powerful claws. The design resembled warning signs about wild animals seen in the mountains and stood out in Misaki for its one-of-a-kind originality. This was the Chinese restaurant, the Mad Bear. Aside from its name and logo, the restaurant was the type of cheap hole-in-the-wall dive that could be found anywhere. It faced competition from the ever-increasing number of chain restaurants, though it had managed to last longer than our dining spots, having received rave reviews on a regular basis. The Mad Bear prioritized the personal touch, focusing on its local clientele, and thus made a point to offer home delivery. It had earned the affectionate moniker QKS, the Quick Killer Stop. Making these deliveries was Soujuurou's responsibility for the time being. Places in Misaki within cycling distance fell under his domain. Anything beyond that was handled by a more experienced top member of the legendary 50cc King Salmon bar bike. But anyway...
ヤシロギのダチから聞いたんだけどな。
And delivery workers were not out on deliveries. They spent their entire shift bussing tables or washing dishes. The dinner rush was yet to come, and Soujuurou and his fellow delivery boys were shooting the breeze while bashing dishes in the back.
聞いてるか、しずき。
聞いてるよ、木の実。
The two were elbow deep in a giant sink as they enthusiastically scrummed. At least that was what he pretended to do while he gossiped.
和食のケニアだけじゃねえんだってよ。三崎町の大帝都にもメシアンにもその手の注文があったらしいぜ。そんなに肉が欲しいなら下市に行けばいいのにな。なんだって生肉だの大物の鮭丸ごとだのを出前させやがるのか。どうよ、こう露骨にヤバそうな話じゃねえ。ワニとかアザラシでも飼ってるんじゃねえかな、そいつ。
他に比べてみると確かに珍しい話だと思う。ところで木の実、ワニってなんだ？
ワニはワニだろう。だっせ、実物見たことないのかよ。まあ俺もねえけどな。今度ガクガク動物ランドのアフリカ特集ビデオを貸してやるから見とけよ。
This was a familiar pattern of conversation between the two, especially now Kinami was used to Soujuurou's lack of general knowledge. Their banter was interrupted by the delivery phone. The manager snapped up the receiver and quickly jotted down the order and address. Once he hung up, everyone in the kitchen did their best to avoid making eye contact with him. Nobody wanted to go rushing out for a delivery on such a cold day.
しずきくん、ち
ちょっと遠いけど配達をお願い。
The manager singled Soujuurou out for the task, seemingly unfazed by his star's slaviness.
はい、これ届けるもののリスト。異例だからあまり他のバイトには他言しないようにね。
The manager tore the sheet with the order and address written on it from his memo pad. Soujuurou took one look at it before a grimace quietly spread across his face.
マネージャー？
なんだい？
The manager stared right back at him as if he could tell what it was he wanted to say.
君の疑問はもっともだ。しかしまあ、長いことこの商売をやっていると、時にはこんなバカな話が転がってくることもある。そうおかしなことじゃない。じゃ、冷蔵庫から品物持ってくるから。
Soujuurou stared in admiration as the manager, dressed in black, marched out of the kitchen in his all-business way. Nowhere was free from the odd occurrence now and then. It's a dimension. Or what? My bigger cat is out cold. Yeah, that was after then that night. Soujuurou had taken a small detour on his way home from work. I guess maybe not then. And now faced an outreach Aoko as expected. Seeing her so visibly irritated made him feel a rush of relief. He did not know why she was angry, but he could tell it was a different type of anger than what he saw earlier that morning.
遅いってまだ10時になったばかりだろう。どうしたんだ青崎？
He set down the cardboard box he had been carrying in his arms and glanced towards the fireplace. The sleeping girl was there no more?
違うわ。もう10時になったの間違いでしょ。あんたってほんと自分がどんな状態にあるか分かってないのね。
ん？
いいから今に来て。
She walked briskly to the other room without pausing, leaving Soujuurou's panic and confusion held tilted to one side. He proceeded to pick his box back up and followed after her eagerly. He removed his coat and hung it on a hanger as he entered the living room. Apparently today was one of those days where Alice kept herself locked away in her room. At the table were the familiar pills.
説明しなかった私も悪いけど、あなたも帰ってくる時間は守ってよね。こっちはそのつもりで作ってるんだから。
Aoko handed him the pills and a glass of water with an expectant look on her face.
薬なら出かける前に飲んだけど、体の調子だって悪くないし、そんなに慌てることか？
は？なんだって私たちがあんたの健康を気にかけなくちゃいけないのよ。勘違いしてるようだけど、あんたが帰ってくるたびに飲んでるのって平たく言えば毒よ。即効性じゃないから効き目は半日すると出てくるんだけど、その前に新しい毒薬を飲んでおかないと古い毒が体に回ってばったりいくって寸法ね。
But why?
アリスのやつ、これぐらいしないと信用できないって言い張ったのよ。ほら分かったらさっさと飲む。ま、私もこれ面倒だと思うし、近いうちもっと形のある方法を考えてみるから、それまでこの方法で我慢して。
Alice somehow managed to poison us, and now we have to counter that with more poison. Jesus Christ.
言ってることは支離滅裂だが、とにかく今まで良くないものを飲んでたんだな。
If not, then in genuine honesty, why? Why, Aoko? So should I take the pills from her and gulped it down? The fact that it was poison gave him no pause at all. As for his roommate's tyrannical behavior, he showed no signs of standing up to it.
まったく、毒を持って毒を制するなんて また古風な真似するな、青崎もアリスも。
How are you? Shojurou's face relaxed into a smile upon finding the funny side of the situation. Aoko was actually dumbfounded as to how he could be happy at a time like this.
今日帰りが遅れたのはアパートまで荷物を取りに行っていたからなんだ。そういうことなら電話の一つでもすればよかった。
荷物ってまさかそれじゃないでしょうね。
Shoujuro nodded empathetically as she pointed incredulously at the cardboard box in his hands.
住んでいないのに家賃を払うのはバカらしいから今日で引き上げてきた。一応いつでも戻れるように話はつけてあるから3ヶ月ぐらいは大丈夫だよ。
家賃？あ、そっか、そうよね。私ってばなんでそんなことを忘れてたんだろう。アリスが聞いたら喜ぶわ、そりゃ。
We can milk the sky dry! A smile flashed across her face as she said. And it was open, bold, face look of a child who just came up with a mischievous plan. Shoujuro shook with fear at the thought of what that smile might bring his way.
けどずいぶん少ないのね、荷物。段ボール一箱分しかないの？
Dumbledore? Oh, cardboard.
そうかな、十分多いだろう。それよりアリスは自室か？
ちょっと前に戻ったわ。珍しく食後もここに残ってたんだけど待ちきれなかったみたいね。
She gave Shoujuro a meaningful look while continuing to smile that sinister smile.
待ちきれなかったって何を？
そりゃあアリスが眠ってるのをいいことに在庫のないフォションとブルーキャリコを勝手に使ってくれたどこかの誰かさんにお仕置きするためなんじゃない？
What are those?
フォッションってあのお茶の葉？
Oh, did we both use it? Just to not fall asleep?
そう、私もびっくりしたけどね。アリスがどっかで寝入るのはよくあることだけど紅茶を用意して眠るなんてのは初めてだったから。
That and we used to make her some tea while she was asleep.
どんな心境の変化か知りたくて起こしたらアリスの方が驚いてたわ。一体誰の仕業なんだって。
Shoujuro claps his hands together as if remembering something important. He had forgotten to clean up the tea before leaving. The regret written from forehead to chin delighted Aoko immensely. Come on.
そうか、それじゃあアリスは怒っていただろう。
当然コマドリがとばっちりでドリブルされてたしね。
ああ、俺でも怒る。片付けをきちんとしないなんてだらしないにも程がある。
Shoujuro harshly scolded himself for his failure.
論点違う。あのね、寝顔を間近で見られたから怒ってるのよ、アリスは。
え？そうかな。アリスはそういうのは気にしないと思うんだけど。
Everyone would. It's kind of creepy.
あんたはそうかもしれないけど、私たちは気にするの。
Aoko's glare was enough to make glass shatter. There was an indescribable intensity in the way she said that.
それは青崎たち限定の話か？
世間一般での常識よ。自分が気にしないからって他人もそうだと思ってるといつかやけどするからね。
うん。でもそれだったらロビーで寝ているアリスにだって問題ないか？見かけたら放っておけないだろう、あんなの。
その心意気は立派だけど、そこはそれ。この館の持ち主は彼女だから。この洋館内であなたが出会ったあらゆる不義不始末、失敗失態の責任は宗十郎に押し付けられるの。この意味わかる？
Aoko's question sent Shoujuro into a trance of deep thought until finally he uttered.
つまりここはアリスの自治領なんだな。
はい、 よくできました。正確には私とアリスのだけどね。領主は何をやっても許されるってことよ。
She smiled as she spoke and plopped herself down on the sofa. Sojuurou remained standing behind the sofa opposite of her as he ran over the conversation again and again in his head. The notion of this being their kingdom made him realize he actually had no idea where the girls had come from or their family's background.
青崎、君ご両親はどうしてるんだ？
He inadvertently blurted out, this being the question foremost in his mind.
生きてるわよ。三崎町から下りに4駅行った東川ってところの地主。死は祖父だけど、今は隠居して両親と一緒の土地に住んでるわ。
そう聞くとなんだか普通の家庭だな。
Sojuurou had imagined something more outrageous for a family of magicians.
両親はね、父さんにはあんまり魔術回路は作られなかったみたいだから、その分私には2世代分の潜在能力があるって祖父は言ってるけど、どうだか。宗十郎の期待してるような一族はどっちかっていうとアリスの方よ。私と違って英国出身だからね、彼女。
Naoko offered nothing more as if to suggest that was as far as she was willing to reveal for now. Sojuurou had insisted on talking to Alice directly rather than hearing things secondhand, so chose not to go back on his word by pushing the topic further.
ま、詳しくは本人から聞きなさい。アリスの紅茶好きもそこから来てるんだし。そういえば、なんで今日に限ってリーフティーなんか入れたの？ティーバッグを使った方がまだマシだったでしょうに。
青崎がそっちの方がいいって言ったじゃないか。アリスは紅茶にうるさいって。
Aoko was momentarily at a loss for words. He seemed so oblivious most of the time, but apparently he was attentive to some details, at least selectively.
ま、いいわ。それより明日の放課後だけど、また一人で帰ってくれない？年明けの行事があるんだけど、その場しのぎで行った餅つき大会が通っちゃってさ、明日も忙しいのよ、私。
That's not an acceptance. In fact, he had already been planning to do so before she even asked.
それはいいけど、体は大丈夫か、青崎。昨日から寝てないだろう。
夕方に3時間ちょい仮眠を取ったから調子はいいわ。そういうあんたこそ体は持つんでしょうね。もう少ししたら昨日の続き始めるわよ。
She meant the all-night cramming session, of course. Needless to say, Sojuurou was more than likely to struggle given that Ji-Chu had not slept a wink. All he could do was give a relieved smile. He thought back to the days just after he transferred here, when she watched his every move from the sidelines and showed a startling amount of concern for him.
いいよ。どのみち苦労するのは青崎の方だし、異例中の異例はありがたく受け取っておくとしよ
う。Yeah. His cheery response grated on her just a little.
あんた、くだらないことだけはしつこく覚えてるんだから。
She heaved her shoulders in exasperation and dropped her head as an excuse to look away from the beaming smile on his face. Cute. The following day, the last day of finals had ended without a hitch. That final December hurdle was finally a thing of the past. For all but one student, that is. The Soujuurou, the greatest challenge was yet to come. Oh, I thought he already failed. He bid farewell to his classmates, all jittery with excitement for the last day of term, and headed into the Shira Inuzuka woods. The road home was no different than yesterday. Like he was reliving yet another day starting up that hill. Yet today there was a fierce determination in his steps. Today was his last chance, and he wanted nothing more than to talk to the girl. He did not care if she was cruel to him or ignored him, nor whether Aoko was being truthful when she said that she could trap him in a Maryland or something like that. All he really cared about was having the chance to speak with her face to face. But nothing is ever that simple. To tell the truth, what he found upon finally entering the mansion was not wholly unexpected. Is she sleeping at the
よく
floor?
寝る子だな、本当。
She's sleeping in the floor again. The deja vu he was experiencing made him dizzy. Yes, he wanted more tea and cookies, I suppose. Faced with an exact reenactment of the previous day, he could not help but blurt out what he was thinking. Alice was sleeping by the fireplace just as she had done yesterday. The way her legs draped to one side resembled those of a princess in a children's book. She looked more comfortable than she had the day before. Miraculously, he had a rare flash of insight that enabled him to read the situation more clearly.
学校で飛び丸は一人何をしているんだろう。
Upon glancing back at the entrance, he made a decision, took a deep breath, and rolled up his sleeves. If today was a reenactment of yesterday, then he supposed he would play along with that idea. Soujuurou removed his shoes and headed for the kitchen. How about we make one change and let's not forget to take all the plates. And let's not stare at the girl too much. It was off to prepare an our ill-fated pot of tea. Since she was angry about him using her precious flocon, this time he turned to Jackson's fruit in the herb brew. Sadly, this was about as much as Soujuurou could manage to amend his behavior. He had failed to realize that it was not the brand of tea that had landed him in the hot water, but rather his incorrect brewing method. After filling the pot with tea, he carried it back to the foyer. His breath was visible in the cold air as he sat himself down by the fireplace. Soujuurou took a sip of the fruity tea he prepared to prepare himself and pulled his textbook from his bag. Exams were over now, but he had been instructed to take extra classes for the subjects from day one of school. Quite inevitable. The foyer was warmer than outside, but still far from comfortable. It was enough to make anyone yearn for some sorts of warmth. Soujuurou dove into his electronics textbook in the winter-chilled hall. The class was not very popular, which is why it had been recommended to him in the first place. That fact that everyone who took it started on equal footing made it more appealing to him than other classes.
けど、青崎の言う通り。
He downed the rest of the tea, having no appreciation for its flavor, and refilled his cup. The tea was still warm, since the ceramic teapot had excellent heat retention.
文字で物事を覚えるのは苦手みたいだ。
He vaguely recalled their conversation as his eyes advanced across the page. The lack of lighting in the foyer was forcing him to rely on illumination from the skylight. The light cut into the room at a diagonal angle in such a way as to divide the foyer into light and dark areas, with the fireplace in shadow. The room resembled ancient ruins covered in ash. Or perhaps a quiet, forgotten world of a faded fairy tale. Time slipped on by within the white walls of this room, hidden away from the sun. The minutes passed slowly for some time until the sound of a textbook slamming shut brought the room back to reality. Soujuurou stretched his stiff back and eagerly got started on clearing up. He put his textbook back in his bag, placed his cup on the tray, leaving Alice sitting in front of her on the floor.
バイトの時間だ。
He said unceremoniously. He spoke as if to convince himself that he had no other choice as he prepared to leave the sleepy foyer behind. Before he could, The sound behind him stopped him in his tracks. He turned around with his back under his arm and tray in his hands. So as not to cause even a ripple in her teacup, he greeted her.
Yeah.
In a light, easygoing manner. She remained seated next to the fireplace, like a black-eyed sleeping beauty. What's she reading? Her face was as still as a statue, almost no different than it had been in slumber. Looking at Alice now, he realized just how different she and Aoko really were. Aoko communicated her feelings openly, even if he never could quite tell where they came from. Her trademark expression of irritation would keep him guessing as to the reason she was angry. But to her credit, her emotional state was always clear. Alice, on the other hand, was completely unreadable. She might be angry or then again sad. He could not tell either way.
何のつもり？
Her question gave him a sinking feeling in the pit of his stomach. He could not decide whether it was animosity or perplexity that he heard in her voice. If the former, this was likely to turn into a replay of their interaction from the other night. An image of the shattered bottle sprang to his mind. Soujuurou knew his response would be extremely important. And after struggling for a few moments, he finally worked up the courage to say something. Just not the correct thing, unfortunately.
そうだな。一口じゃ説明できないから。座るよ。
He had no idea what the correct approach would be, so he simply did whatever came into his mind instead. She gave him no response. Her face said that she detested his presence, but he plowed ahead regardless. Soujuurou took a seat and sat down to trade once more. Their eyes met. Her inscrutable gaze was enough to turn most people away. But the target of her animosity appeared not to notice it at all.
それで何？
ああ、遅くなったけど、こうして話がしたかったんだ、アリスと。
Despite having suggested that it would take time to explain, you managed to sum things up nicely. Secondly,
私と？会うことではなく？
ん？そうだね。青崎とはもっと話したいところだけど、それよりは3人で話してみたい。
Alice pointed herself out of Hitler, unable to read his true intentions. Soujuurou continued on, none the wiser to her bewilderment.
青崎は普段からアリスとは会話がないって言うんだ。それが俺のせいなら困るし、俺のせいじゃないならもっと困る。せっかく同じ場所にいるのに会話がないなんてもったいないと思うんだ。
Each word he spoke was heavy with emotion. Alice remained utterly unable to discern his boy's intentions. All she could parse was that there was something he wanted from her. But what could that be? What she found even stranger was that he was not speaking to her from a place of fear.
あなたは私が怖くないの？
ああ、だってそう言えるほど俺は君をよく知らない。
Her gleaming eyes looked like they were made of polished quartz. His response had not been what she expected. He spoke with pure honesty and unfettered truth. Such boldness, however, did not actually upset her. The conversation ground to a halt. If you could even call the conversation in the first place. Alice grew tense, as if pleased with the strangely comfortable moment of silence between them. Soujuurou endured her cold stare, showing no sign of flinching.
話。
Speech.
私と話をしたいと言ったでしょ。なら
Converse.
好きにしてみたら。
It was more a challenge than an invitation. He had neither a topic on hand nor ability intimate enough to strike up a casual conversation. Nonetheless, their challenge hung in the air, waiting for a response.
じゃああの鳥の話を。ほらそこにいる青い鳥。たまに見かけるんだけど君の飼い鳥か？それともほらなんて言ったかな、プロイだっけ？あの鳥もアリスの使い魔？
Alright, let's for a moment a very natural response. It was an annoyance such as that which one might feel towards a troublemaker.
あれもプロイだけど、私とは何の関係もないダッチョウ。ずいぶん古くからいるだけで、私もよく知らないわ。
It isn't yours.
ん？じゃあ勝手に住んでるのかこの家に？
勝手になんて私が許すはずがないでしょ。ロビンは本当に役に立たないけど、あんなのでも母から譲り受けたものだから、失敗続きでも特別に住まわせてあげてるの。
そっか、安心した。ここに住むの役に立たなきゃダメってわけでもないんだね。
She turned away in silence to avoid looking at his hapless grin. Thus begins Soujuurou's very lengthy monologue. He started with his part-time job, then moved onto the school. Next, skipped the amusement park and let him gossip around town, and last the subject of rent. He spent all of 20 minutes on mindless small talk. Then he ran out of things to say and finally stopped.
ごめん、アルバイトがあるから、もう行くよ。
And that was that. After finally getting his long-awaited chance to talk to her, he realized he had no exit plan in place. So he returned to the kitchen, placed his bag in the foyer, and headed for the door. She had never seen the boy so candid, which was why, overcome with surprise, she found herself calling out to him.
待って。
She had no reason to do so, and yet she called out anyway.
ん？何？
今日はポットがあったけど。
うん。昨日の反省点だったから。結局使ったのは自分だけだけど。
そう。そのポットはコーヒーとの兼用だから。ハーブティーには合わないわ。
Soujuurou's eyes grew wide with shock. Now he remembered that there had been all sorts of cups and teapots in the cupboard, each one specially designed for a different type of tea.
なかなかに奥深い。あれかな。慣れないことはするもんじゃないってことか。
She let out a waxed sigh.
どうして私を起こさなかったの？
Either she had not heard what he said, or she had been waiting to settle down for a chance to ask him that. In any case, the question abruptly interrupted his stream of thought. He fell silent with introspection. The thought of breaking her had not so much as crossed his mind either that day or the previous one.
言って。起こす気も起きることも期待していなかったのは。
Her eyes were filled with animosity. Lies were useless against such an all-piercing gaze. The setting sun transformed the foyer into a battle of life and death. Lies or deceptive answers would not be permitted. Amidst the palpable tension that filled the room, where any move, wrong or otherwise, was likely to get him killed, he felt pain rather than fear. Alice's voice was icy cold, preemptively rejecting any response he was to give. The boy vaguely imagined a newborn chick that had fallen from the nest, struggling to survive on its own. It gasped, hanging on a thread of hope, yet detesting where that thread hung.
言わなきゃいけないか。
Alice nodded sharply.
じゃあ言うけど、 別に深い考えがあったわけじゃない。単に寝た子を起こすのは良くないだろ。
冗談は聞いてないわ。
冗談じゃないよ。眠っているのならそのままでいいと思ったんだ。話はしたいけど、それはまた目が覚めた次の機会にするべきだって。
随分と悠長なのね。青子があなたを守るのは今日までだって聞いているけど、私に取り入る機会はこれが最後なのに。それともあれだけ忠告されておいてまだ何も分かっていないの？
He had not. He swore to her, agreed to her terms, and gone as far as to sit face to face with her and get to know her. Surely he thought this was enough to escape death. And she believed, as a mage, that his naive goodwill and simple-mindedness were all the reasons she needed to execute him. Trivially, our misunderstandings would only make things worse at this point.
そりゃ何もわからないよ。魔術とか魔法とか、たった数日でわかるもんか。はっきりしているのは、アリスも青崎も言ったことはきっちり守るってことだけだ。
ならどうして？
Her gaze said what she really wanted to ask. She wanted to know why he did not beg for his life. She knew the answer. She saw the look on his face when he turned to leave without so much as trying to wake her. A look of resignation. What on earth had it meant?
どうしてって、そう言われても困る。そうだな。機会が訪れなかったのなら、それはそういうことだと思ったのかもしれない。君の寝顔はそれぐらい、なんていうか、判断に困った。青崎とは違う意味で、簡単には関われないと思ったんだ。
Soujuurou struggled to find the right words, but said what he was feeling at the moment anyway. He do seem a sleeping witch of the wood who clearly needed someone's help, yet sought the help of no one.
そう。でもしずきくんは関わろうとしているのね。その機会は訪れなかったのに。
機会はやってきたよ。なんでこっちも今日ぐらいは自分の勝手にして無茶をしたくなったんだ。
しずきくんの言う通りなら私はあなたを拒絶するしかないのに。
まあそこが難しいところなんだけど。
Soujuurou glanced at the entrance. He had no reason to. He had no reason to. He just felt an urge to do so.
多分そこを解決したがってるのは俺だけじゃないと思うよ。
He muttered as if speaking to himself, but it was clearly meant for her to hear. Alice knew full well how poorly he had understood the situation. All of this was one giant misunderstanding on his part. His tiny gesture of goodwill, pitiful and pure, resembled out of someone, reaching out to help a dying kitten. For Alice, doing so would be akin to clutching the thorns of a rose. She felt a pain in her chest for the first time in quite a while.
けど私はあなたの同居を認めてはいないわ。
She addressed the floor at her feet to avoid showing him how she truly felt. If he had, he would have seen that her face looked just the way Aoko's had earlier.
だろうな。それはきっと今は解決できない問題だ。でもそのうち何かの気まぐれであっさり終わるものかもしれない。だからその時までアリスはずっと俺を嫌っていていいんだと思う。
Her gasp of breath was like a response in itself, to suggest she could keep hating him. She had once wished to hear those words so dearly, if only the once.
大体だぞ。アリスだけじゃなく青崎も同居を認めてない節があるじゃないか。だから認めてもらうなんて意気込み自体が間違いなんだ。どうあっても俺は青崎や君たちとは違うんだし。となるとあとは我慢してもらうしかない。難しい話だけど 一緒にいても邪魔にならないぐらいならその可能性は上がらないか？
Thinking that of course it was possible. But if it were that easy, none of this would have been necessary in the first place. Alice nodded in agreement. There was no way he could have planned for things to work out this well. But his plan in fact had worked, if inadvertently, from the moment the conversation began.
例えばあなたが隣にいても眠っていられるぐらいに。
そうだね。例えばの話。
Beaming, Soujuurou stood up and left the foyer. Alice did not stop him this time. He had a newfound spring in his step as he headed to work. But something gave him a moment's pause.
実際、覗き見は趣味が悪いと思う。
Aoka? He complained aloud to make sure it wasn't someone heard him. No more than 2 minutes had passed since Soujuurou left the mansion when the long-haired figure came creeping out of into the foyer. Aoko Aozaki had been just outside this entire time, eavesdropping.
帰ってたの。
With a sullen glare, Alice addressed the interloper. Aoko was shivering from head to toe after standing in the cold for so long. But it was so damn worth it. She deemed gloves an abomination and refused to wear them except in the most extreme cold. As a result, her slender fingers were pitifully swollen and red.
ちょっと前にね。それでどうだったのアリス？随分と話してたみたいだけど。
She looked strangely elated as she blew on her hands to warm them. Alice was not fooled at all by Aoko's facade, clear from the ill-tempered look she wore on her face.
あなたがここまで過保護とは思わなかったわ。意地？それとも義務？
どっちかっていうと成り行きね。で、どうだったのよ結果は。気に食わなかったら実力行使に出るって言ってたじゃない。
Alice's mood was growing darker and darker the longer she had to look at Aoko's cheerful posturing. It all went back to their dinner together the previous night. After everything that happened in the foyer, Alice was both more suspicious of and intrigued by Soujuurou than ever before. She insisted that Aoko let him walk home alone the next day. She then used a concoction to fake her slumber and recreate the same scene as the previous day. Well, that portion of her plan went well, but the rest were totally off course. It did not help to know her roommate had savored every moment of it from the other side of the wall either. To make matters worse, Alice was frustrated at herself for letting such trivial matters bother her. She stared at the teacup still sitting on the floor. Her pale finger traced its cold rim.
青子の言う通り、害にはならない人ね。あくまで今のところの話だけど。
Except for that clock he was hiding behind his back. She forced a tone of indifference in order to hide her irritation with her apprentice. It was in this moment that Soujuurou's fate was decided.
あら、それだけ？アリスにしては長く話してたのに。
Relentless, Aoko continued her line of questioning. Alice only stared back icily.
青子、あなた、隠していたわね。
I know because I heard Soujuurou say something about it. She voiced her displeasure at Aoko's behavior in no uncertain terms. Suddenly the air in the foyer felt cold as ice. They stared at one another, each trying to guess the other's next move.
さすがね。よくそこに気がついたもんだわ。でも、こればかりは譲れないのよ。
Aoko widened her stance and glared at Alice.
何も全て奪うとは言っていないわ。そうね。あなたにも3割ぐらいは回すつもり。
Completely unperturbed by Aoko's warlike posturing, a simple look was all Alice needed to keep her roommate in check.
10が3に化けちゃちょっと黙ってらんないわね。
高望みは命取りよ、青子。
Alice remained calm and dignified, not moving a muscle. It felt like hours passed as the two stared at each other in silence. Aoko was grinding her teeth in frustration. At this rate, their alliance would be in tatters before they even confronted their foe. And worst of all, she knew Alice had the upper hand.
ケチ。
Aoko had said that their defeat with a tsk.
悔しいけど、アリスが6。私が4で手を打つわ。
It paid her to settle for less. Alice nodded in satisfaction.
そうね。家主は私だけど、彼を招いたのは青子だから。その代わり、家賃の取り立てはあなたの役割ね。
いいけど。ああ、情けない。こんなことなら錬金術でもかじっておくんだった。そうすればこんな思いをしなくても済んだのに。
そうでもないわ。彼らバブルが弾けて大変だって話よ。
Alice spoke with the confidence of someone with first-hand experience of such matters. Yet Aoko only nodded absent-mindedly in response. Their very fight was over how to split the take of Soujuurou's rent, and now that he was officially going to move in. Now they must becoming quarrel over a pair of mages. Forcing a boy to live with them and then demanding he pay rent was beyond extortion. It was truly vicious.
でも、そんなセリフが出るってことは、アリスもようやく認めたってことね。
Aoko was triumphantly satisfied with herself.
認めてはいないけど、公園での夜、彼を結界で捕捉しなかった責任があるから。彼と約束をした青子だけを責められないでしょ。
約束か。
Aoko looked up at the ceiling as she recalled the night at the amusement park. Only a week at most had passed since then, but Aoko already felt that Soujuurou's fate on her own had become intrinsically linked. Or perhaps she had always been connected by fate since the moment the two met. She could not see into the future, so there was no way to know for sure.
ま、縁とか運とかはともかく、変だけどいいやつよね、あいつ。
That uttered to herself in self-confirmation more than to Alice. Alice could only look on in annoyance. Perhaps in an attempt to voice her displeasure at her comment.
青子、あの傷を知ってる？
傷？
Alice raised her slender fingers to her mouth as if to push the words back in. She had blurted it out in the heat of the moment. A secret that no one else was supposed to know, but that which one could not keep to herself.
Hmm?
Gotcha. I could tell that they had in confusion.
So?
Alice looked relieved for some reason. Her sudden antipathy towards Aoko had dissipated as well.
幸せな人。
Said Alice as she took a sip of her cold tea. She made no attempt to explain who was fortunate or why. A moment later, her beautiful face contorted in revulsion.
まず。
She abandoned the cup to the floor once more. Her black dress unceremoniously scrunched up as she stood. Just one sip of the underbrewed tea sent her fleeing to the drawing room to remove the bad taste from her mouth. As soon as she was gone, Aoko had steadily took the teacup in her own hands. It was almost simply left untasted, but she could not help but wonder how Soujuurou's tea could arouse such a strong response. After one small sip, she returned it quietly to the floor.
だからティーバッグにしろって言ったのに、あのバカ。
Okay. The expression in her face was nearly identical to that of her roommates. And that is that. Oh, new book added to the archive. So, finally, notification regarding that. Like, the last time we went to the archives, which was there was no indication whatsoever. The bird of okay, Martha is the new one. Okay, and I guess we're gonna unlock ploys after we complete another chapter. Besides that, I'll see you in another episode real soon. I was thinking of doing Martha right now, but this episode has been going on long enough, and this whole chapter in general was it was pretty long.